Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. A little later on, we're going to talk about the Public Utilities Commission. No. Should we elect these guys? But first, it's hard to believe it has been 10 years. My Lord, 10 years since the closing of the Rocky Mountain News. Now, those of you who are 90 years old like I am, remember it was a newspaper and people really liked it. Michael Roberts is with Westword. You do the media coverage. You must love that another paper just bit it because it was good for Westword.
Oh, it didn't have any impact on us whatsoever. I miss the Rocky Mountain News. The competition between the Denver Post and the Rocky Mountain News was better for both papers. They actually tried to beat each other by doing good journalism instead of selling a better advertisement, and those of us who are around miss it.
All right, so this is old guy stuff. So sitting around having a beer, going, I remember when it was really good. I tell you, we had two newspapers, but it really was amazing. I remember as a kid in the '70s. It looked like the Denver Post was going to go out of business. Mm-hmm. And it was really close to going out of business. It was the afternoon paper. I remember it would come in the afternoon, and the Rocky was couldn't lose. I'm not remembering that incorrectly, am I?
No, you're remembering it absolutely accurately. Dean Singleton, who became the owner of the Denver Post, basically picked it up off the scrap heap and managed to make it the dominant paper in the area.
How did he do that? What made those two switch? One was making the Post be a morning paper to compete directly with the Rocky Mountain News. But what did Singleton do that changed it?
Well, one of the things that's part of our story this week, and we have a big interview with John Temple, who was the editor, publisher, and president of the Rocky when it went down, that he talked about and I found really revealing, was simply the size of the paper made all the difference. The Rocky Mountain News was a tabloid, so it had a smaller page size. The Denver Post was a broadsheet, so it had a bigger page size. And when they got into a joint operating agreement, if somebody bought an ad in both papers, it was about 70 inches in the Rocky and it was about 126 inches in the Post. So the Post made almost double on the same ad every day. And that basically spelled doom for the Rocky Mountain News.
I never even thought about that.
No, I found it really interesting.
I thought, because there were several sad days. I think the first sad day was when the Rocky and the Post came together for a joint operating agreement. Mm-hmm. And it felt like Neville Chamberlain. We're just stalling off something here that we know is going to be bad.
Yeah.
It's a treaty with Russia. It's going to be fine. But you knew it was just temporary. Mm-hmm. And as a consumer, I hated it because the price of the paper went up. Because you could get it for like $3 a year. You remember this?
In the days before that joint operating agreement, they basically were in a Pyrrhic battle to get as many subscribers as they possibly could. And $3 a year is probably not that far off from what it was. It was crazy cheap. And they were both racing to the bottom of the price war, and that was what led them into the joint operating agreement. They had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of subscribers, but weren't making a dime.
The Rocky took the secondary seat in that joint operating agreement. They had the Saturday-only paper.
Yeah.
The Post had the Sunday-only paper. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, that's the Super Bowl, I think, in daily newspapers. Whoever has the Sunday.
Right.
But I never really thought about the page size because I knew that they had to have the same advertisements. But I would think I didn't know they paid by
the inch.
I thought it was a full page ad here is a full page ad there.
Nope. And even
why
though
did they
the
agree to that
Rockies,
then? Couldn't somebody see that one coming?
They should have. And in fact, John Temple talked about how if they had been really bold and come up with a strategy to sort of break the rules and keep going, they might have done a tabloid, which was the smaller size, during the week, and the broadsheet on Sundays, because 50% of the revenue for the entire week was on Sundays. That's when you could really make bank. And then you could do the cheaper paper that wouldn't cost as much during the week when not as many people were picking it up. So he looks back and thinks that's a missed opportunity, and that would have been very bold, and no one had ever done it before. But they tried all kinds of crazy theories too. Another one, they actually explored the idea of inserting the Rocky Mountain News into each issue of the Denver Post as if it would be a supplement. And they would still be separate newspapers, but they would be in one package. And they tried, or at least explored the idea, and then...
You could buy a double subscription, couldn't you?
You could buy a double
subscription. So you could get both of them. It was cheaper to get both of them than to buy one whole and the other whole, wasn't
And
it?
many people did, because in the beginning, as we were talking about, the prices were so cheap. It's like, well, $6 instead of $3, why not? And you can double the coupons and save that much more money at King Soopers. So a lot of people had 2 subscriptions. Now, if you find somebody with 1 subscription, it's like winning the lottery.
So I finally got a subscription to the Post, and I'm a columnist there. This is something I should do, but it's only because it came with it was $40 for 15 weeks or something, and it came with a $25 gift card to Amazon or something. All right, after the death of the Rocky, it was for junkies. It was a sad day.
Oh, absolutely.
It was like politics in this town, in this state, will change forever. What has been the most notable change since the Rockies' demise, from your point of view?
Well, one of the things that's happened is technological. We basically had these publications have a much greater audience online than they ever had before, but that advertisement online didn't bring in as much as the print advertisement. So the papers shrink, the staff shrink. At one point, the Denver Post had over 300 journalists in the editorial newsroom. Now it's about 60. So we're at about 1/5 the size that it once was. And that really has an impact on how news is covered and even what news is covered.
For me, it's more what news is covered. This is a state that has nearly 4,000 governments. 4,000 governments.
And a lot of land, too.
And a lot of land, a lot of industry. But if the fourth estate's job is to keep an eye on government, there's no way you can do that with 60 people. So Denver gets some coverage, the state gets some coverage, and everything else is a little here, a little there.
Yeah.
The paper is smaller. I see a storm that happened. 1, just people weren't buying papers. 2, the classifieds went away. 3,
that was big for us, too.
Yeah, well, for
Westword,
thank God
absolutely.
for hookers and pot. Otherwise, your paper would never have survived.
You just said a mouthful there. Absolutely right. We have a joke around the office that we should have bumper stickers on our cars saying, "Marijuana ads feed my family."
I opened up a Westword. I was teasing Patty about it, and it seemed like half marijuana ads. It is the go-to place. So when they start selling that at King Soopers, you guys are going to have to find a new revenue stream.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm sure they're already thinking about that.
All right. So from here onward, I believe Phil Anschutz owns the name, the Rocky Mountain News.
He does.
What does that mean?
It gives him the option at some future point to be able to revive the Rocky Mountain News under that same name. Now, whether that means anything 10 years later when so many people have moved to this area and probably think the Rocky Mountain News is a car dealership, I don't know. There may not be much bang for that buck anymore. But the Denver Post, for a lot of different reasons, is in really shaky, really shaky ground right now. The owner of the Denver Post is currently a hedge fund, which is called Alden Global Capital. And it is not run by journalists. It's not run by people who care about journalism. They basically treat it as a commodity, just like screwdrivers, just trying to get the most money
Yeah,
they can out of
you're
it.
journalists want everybody to think you guys are something special. You are a commodity, so there's nothing wrong with that.
In this case, this commodity is being squeezed in a way that it's basically, in the words of Jon Temple in our interview, it's just being sucked dry, and after it's done, they'll throw it away.
I've put up this worry before, and let me throw it out. I believe that a community, state, needs a news paper of record, some sort of housing that says maybe it's a liberal paper, maybe it's, but there's enough trust that if they say it, their story selection might be biased, but the facts are more than often true. And so we forever had two such statewide papers that were papers of record. Now that the Post is shrinking, and I'm actually more optimistic about the Post than I have been in a while. I think they've hit a spot where they can't go farther down.
I think that's really a point worth making, because in the 1990s, I had all kinds of experts tell me newspapers will be dead within 10 years. And here we are in 2019, and they continue to exist. They're very different, but we always kind of decide on the death of these things prematurely. The Post is hanging in there. I think the people there are trying really hard and working hard to make it the best paper they can be under difficult circumstances.
Also, it's changing, because in the future there will be no paper.
Yeah.
I mean, we old dogs, what else do you wrap your stuff in when you move? You need a paper. But young people, they look at these things, these pieces of paper, and go, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So they're trying to make this transition, and they're doing, I think, a pretty fair job from to digital.
Yeah.
That's going to be tough. I have this terrible theory that public radio, like Colorado Public Radio, which is MSNBC, it's Fox News, but it's on the progressive left, that it could become the newspaper of record, where you've got organizations that are donating reporters and doing collaborative efforts, all pushing towards one theme where there is a government answer to every issue. I wonder, they've got a delivery system, and they've got the electronic side. So I wonder what the newspaper of the future is going to be, or the newspaper record. And God help us if it's Westword.
Well, that's what we're shooting for. This is a world domination plan. First Denver, then the planet.
Then the planet. All right, people want to read the article?
In this week's Westword, and also online at westword.com.
Michael, you do an incredible job. I appreciate somebody caring.
Thank you so much for having me.
Stay tuned.